And we're live. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to our December Scottish Developers Meetup. Delighted to have you all here. Now, I'll go over briefly the structure. It's super simple. We're just going to do some introductions. Then we'll have the main event with Cesar, and then we'll have some closing words and some future plans. So without further ado, I shall bring in Cesar. Now, we will have some Q&As at the end, but equally, if you prefer, you can ask questions and Cesar can answer them for you. If you just put something in the comments, we'll let him know as we go along. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in Cesar, who is here to talk to us about AWS Amplify, which I believe makes cloud development, which always does have a bit of a learning curve, that bit much more accessible, so to speak.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Andrew, for having me here. I'm pretty excited, super excited.
Pleasure to have you here. So why don't you tell everyone a bit about yourself, first of all?
Yeah, sure. If you don't mind, I would like to start my presentation because before to tell about me, I would like to tell to your attendees a story about why is Amplify interesting for them. So
yeah, up to you.
If you don't mind, so can I share my screen?
Yep, absolutely. We'll just get if you.
Thanks. Whoops. Can you see my presentation?
Yeah, we can.
Cool. Thanks, Andrew. So just to tell a story, like everything, when you are app developer or developer in general, everything starts with an idea, right? So our company has an idea about the development or to create an app or create a website or create a mobile application, or your internal company wants to build an app, or you work in a startup and then you want to also build an app for your business. But when you start to building this app, there is always some recurrent requirements that you have to address. Like for instance, user management or API access or storage being a database or files or analytics. And then when we as an app developers, we need to create this app, we need to go over and over again to these requirements. But this doesn't end on this, right? Because if the app succeeds, we want to ensure like our app is scalable and is high available. But if it doesn't get the engagement from the business point of view, we want to spend as minimum amount of resources and money as we need, right? So when we scale, when we want to the app scale, we always have this kind of requirement, recurrent operational concerns, like the security, how we're gonna secure our application, how we're gonna do the patching and maintenance of our, if we have services or servers or databases, how is gonna be our availability, how we're gonna monitor and log our application, and how it's gonna scale. So all these concerns we are gonna have over and over and over when we want to build an app. So at the end, there are three main problems in this history, in the story, like many of you probably have to face when you want to build an app. So we need sometimes a full-fledged teams with knowledge in front-end development, backend development, infrastructure, software architecture. If we want to be cloud native, then we also need some cloud knowledge. Always the problem too is we as app developers, sometimes we want to focus just in our front-end architecture or our front-end development, and we don't want to take care or concern about what is going to happen behind the scenes. So always is the question, what do we need to do? So which kind of services we're going to use a SaaS, a PaaS application for that, a PaaS infrastructure. We want to use someone already like give us out of the box these capabilities. And the other problem three is we cannot wait, right? So we want to go fast to the markets in the low cost, And also we want a certain degree of predictability about how it's going to be our cost running the app. So all these problems is the kind of problems like I would like to talk about today. So this is me. That's why I wanted to tell you first the story, because then it's gonna make more sense in the rest of my presentation. So I didn't want to talk about me a lot. So my name is Cesar. I'm the tech principal and a digital in the Aleta club. I'm also AWS a community builder in the specialty of the serverless. So for no more introduction about me. I want to continue the story telling you about a company, probably for a picture, you know what I'm talking about. Like they have more than 200 services, most of them self-managed. These 200 services, we are talking about compute, network, storage, and many concerns are touching the services, right? So the pricing model of the services in most of the cases is the pay as you go. So you're gonna pay for what you're gonna use, and the ability to you have the ability on the services to deploy these backend systems, because we are talking about the backend services, the systems globally in minutes. So this is really cool for any company. So because they can reach their customers globally around the world really easy and really fast. And the other good thing of this company is like they build these services under the same principles, so under security, high availability, and high scalability. So this company thought, okay, how we can bring all this power to the app development ecosystem, but in a nice way, because it's not enough like we're gonna expose all these services and then we're gonna tell to the app developers, just take this power and use it, because they are not going to have enough knowledge to use them. So how we can make everything easier? So funding a C-level top model agency, you know these two guys probably, so maybe not, right? So they were thinking on creating AWS Amplify. Amplify is a opinionated cross-platform tool. I will tell you later why it is opinionated. You will understand that later. That can be used to help developers to build high scalable full stack applications. Why full stack? Because you can use Amplify, the framework, inside on native applications on iOS and Android. And you can use also for creating mobile and web applications in React application, Vue, and also in mobile in hybrid frameworks like Flutter, or more native frameworks like React Native. So it's cross-platform application. But what exactly offers Amplify, and what Amplify makes really easy to use and good to use for developers? But first, to go in deep about the technicalities about the Amplify, I will just to reflect, tell you about which are the main interact ways, like we interact with AWS services. If you have experience with AWS services before, you probably know like there is three main ways like you can interact, right? So one is the API. You make a HTTP request to DynamoDB, for instance, to tell you some service, and then you can store data, you can get data, you can delete data. Another way is the SDKs. AWS by default offers, for instance, to give you an example, S3, a really solid SDK client, like you can use in your applications. So you can you can interact with S3 really easy, or by the management console. You go to the management console, you start to click around, create an S3 bucket, or create a DynamoDB or whatever. But obviously, it's not the best way to interact. But these are the main three. So if we now organize the different AWS services in buckets, we have the compute, and maybe the networking, storage, machine learning, user management, data analysis, and others. But why I tell you this, because it's important how AWS Amplify reshape a little bit the way it's thinking it's thinking these packets in order to give the ability to developers to interact with the services. And the other thing, please bear with me on that, is the SDKs, because the SDKs is an important part of the AWS Amplify. So Amplify is divided mainly. I'm not going to talk today about the hosting part because I think it's more interesting to talk about the CLI and the libraries. The libraries is what I told you before, is the way AWS reshuffle the way to expose the SDKs, the functionality of the services. Because as an app developer, you don't care about compute, or you don't care about the user management. You care about authentication. You care about the API access. You care about a data store. You care about the storage. So in storage, you mean databases, or you care about these concerns to the business concerns or the application concerns. So that's why the libraries are opinionated in the way you're gonna use. I'm gonna show you a demo after. I'm gonna show you why are opinionated these libraries. But by the other hand, is the way AWS reshuffle the story around the services to make accessible to everyone, because any developer can understand these concerns. The other nice component is the CLI. Why is important the CLI? Because it's the way we are gonna deploy and provision the services by the CLI. And the good of the CLI is the CLI can run in any operating system integrated in our IDE. So the app developer will have the power from the CLI to deploy their backend system. So to give you an example, if I want to create an authentication system for my app, I'm gonna go to my CLI and I'm gonna provision and deploy an authentication service. Which is the authentication service it's gonna use behind the scenes? We are gonna see this right now. One slide that I really like to share with you is this one, because in not many places you can see this organization. Because if you want to go beyond the Amplify, you need to understand what is the services are behind all these Amplify libraries. So for instance, API, we have 2 flavors in REST of GraphQL. So this is the services are behind these services. So API Gateway, AppSync, Lambda, Dynamo. If we talk about the analytics, we have a Pinpoint and also Kinesis. We have the authentication, Cognito is the main service. Data Store, Data Store is a library we can tackle the offline, online scenarios in our applications. Is using their own Amplify engine to manage these cases. But this is more at the framework level. So it's not using directly any service when you are offline. In the push notification, again, a Pinpoint or using web workers, depending on which setup we are working on. The web, if we are building web applications or we are building mobile applications, and finally storage with S3. This is one scope of the libraries. The other scope of libraries is the PubSub. The PubSub use IoT to do the real-time connectivity, and MQTT also to create a real-time connection between your applications and the backends. The new service AWS released pretty recently was the geolocation, the location service. So the Amplify team created a geo library where you can include in your applications maps, locations, and all this kind of stuff. Interactions with Amazon Lex, so you can create bots for your applications, you can create chats and all this kind of stuff of functionality, and predictions, it's the whole spectrum of the machine learning. So in order for you to translate a text, recognize images, extract the text for images, recognize objects, predict your sentiments in certain sentences, and all this kind of stuff. So more stuff. I would like to give to the community something like they can check. So if you go to my GitHub repository, you have 2 repositories, one for Android examples like I created sometime before. So you can see in some Android applications where where I show how to use the Amplify libraries. And also recently I created one to create a Next.js application, like it's the one that I want to show you today, where I use the Amplify libraries to create an authentication system and also to interact with the API. I want to quickly cover some of the features like you can have per library, because you have a library like we mentioned, like is super business oriented or application oriented, and from this library you have a set of functionalities that is gonna be exposed to these libraries. At the end, one thing like I want to give also to you the message is like behind the curtains of these libraries is the SDKs. So for instance, if we're talking about the authentication, almost all the SDK functionalities exposed by Cognito is functionality like it's gonna be exposed in the Amplifier library. So that's why in the authentication library, you can gonna be able to do sign in your application, sign in, sign ups, logins, multi-factor authentication, a social federation, providers with social logins, guest user, password management, user attributes, device tracking, and async events. And in analytics, we are gonna be able to create events and also to create marketing campaigns and the integration with data lakes. And in APIs, in the 2 flavors I'm gonna talk about here only with the GraphQL, you can create and manage your GraphQL schema modeling inside of your IDE, and also the CLI is gonna automatically generate the code for your queries, mutation, and subscription. So it's also a really nice feature. You can manage the records, the authentications. You can create a real-time communication via GraphQL subscriptions, and it's going to be really nice integrated with the AWS DynamoDB. Like it's a serverless NoSQL database, like it's self-managed by AWS. Like it's really cool database. I really like it. Data store is the other library. So it's another library where you can be able to with no additional code to manage the online offline scenarios. You can have real-time observers. You can have async event notification with something changed in your observers. You're gonna have an advanced conflict resolution algorithms when your backend systems will have a different data from your offline data. So one thing to take in account is when you change something in your API models, you imagine like you manipulate in your front end, in your local, in your CLI, your schema, and you change something, and then because the data store engine in your local host is going to be needed to delete it in order to take the new schema and then create these offline online scenarios again. So it's the only caveat like they have. The predictions, maybe some of you doesn't see a direct use case for that, but it's also interesting how you can, for instance, for the it can be translated the text to speech. It's possible to translate the language, identification of the text entities on the images, labeling of the images, or the motion recognition. In the storage, obviously, it's pretty straightforward because it's a file management, right? So you're gonna be able to list, to upload files, to download files, to delete files, and and on the access level, you're gonna be able to manage these files, public, protected, or private. And another cool features of the Amplify is it's called escape hatch. Because as I tried to explain you before, it's like behind the curtains of the Amplify, you have the SDKs. So if you want to escape the AWS library and go directly straight to work directly with the AWS SDK that you want to manipulate. For instance, this is example, like you can access directly to the client of the S3 without using the Amplify library. In this case, it's probably is something like is more sophisticated, or there are some feature that you can obtain directly from the Amplify library. So you want to access directly to the SDK. So let's talk about money, right? So because money is really important thing, because in Amplify, you don't pay for using the libraries. You are gonna pay for the underlying services like that the libraries use. So some people doesn't get this difference, but it's pretty important, because when you start to use authentication API storage, you're gonna start to pay for the usage. You have control of this cost, but still you need to understand what you're gonna pay for. So that's why I try to present today an example about for which things you're gonna pay. For instance, imagine for the people, this is especially for the people like are not totally into the cloud technologies, so they can have a taste about what they're gonna pay for. For instance, I want to show you here, explain you here an example where you want to build an app with expected 60,000 users, right? So in this app, you can use authentication and API GraphQL. So which services you're gonna be invoiced for? So Cognito, because it's gonna manage the authentication, and the AppSync and Dynamo for the GraphQL and storage part. So in Cognito, you pay for the EMU users. So it's the monthly active users. The EMU are the users that perform any action, authentication, or authorization action during a current month. So at the end here, you have a total cost of Cognito that you can pay for this for the first 50,000 users can be included in your free tier, and then from there you're gonna pay to other 10,000. So you're gonna pay around $50 a month if all users are MAU. So the other part is the AppSync. The AppSync invoices for the operations, caching, and real-time subscriptions, plus the data transfer. So assuming like in your app, you don't have any real-time communication. So, and the 60,000 users are gonna do, for instance, 1 million requests per month, on average, with a response size of 5 kilobytes. So that means like you're gonna pay for the operation cost for this million requests, for the data transfer, and in total you're gonna pay $4.43 a month just for the API GraphQL. And the latest component of this whole architecture of this whole application, because here we're talking about like you're gonna build an application end to end, is including the API and storage, is the DynamoDB. Then DynamoDB has quite a complex pricing schema. And for the sake of simplifications, assume like all these 1 million requests is going to create 1.5 million writes and 1.5 million reads. So you're going to pay for the storage, like it's going to be 0 up to 25 gigabytes, and the reads and the writes. And then in the total amount of cost at the end of the month for all the setup, including end to end, it's going to be around $62 a month. Like it's quite affordable. But at the end, you're gonna be you can go and scale with Dynamo, you can go and scale with AppSync, and you can go scale with Cognito if the users increase of the usage increase. So that's really good also for your scalability. And the takeaways for this part, I'm gonna go for the demo right now. If I hope like you still bear with me. But the takeaways until now is Amplify is really easy to use, and I'm gonna show you like it's really well integrated in your IDE and CLI. Covers all the major requirements of any app: authentication, API, storage, between others. App developers can take control about the event data modeling, even the data modeling from your IDE and for your CLI, so you can take control about the deployment, the provisioning, the data modeling. Amplify can be used in greenfield projects, also in existing infras. And the pricing model is complex because AWS pricing is super complex, but still is really really good offers. AWS offers a lot of tools where you can get a lot of insights about your cost. And if you are concerned about vendor lock-in, because maybe in the room we have people like Azure or other services, why I have to do if I need to move to another services, just think about what is the total cost if you want to build the same app in a fragmented tech. So resort in terms of different stacks, different languages, operations, tools, infrastructure, time to market, or maintenance. So I want to go for the demo. Any question so far? Andrew, any question for me?
None so far. None so far, but I do have one actually, which has just occurred to me.
Yeah.
You said you can work with existing infrastructure. How does it interact with things like CloudFormation or Terraform or things like that? Is there a way of kind of either getting CloudFormation or integrating it with other existing things? Because obviously existing infra would be under infrastructure as code.
Yeah, exactly. If I'm gonna answer to your question doing the demo, because I think the demo is gonna clarify many of the questions related how to interact with CloudFormation. Yeah.
No problems.
Cool.
Anyway, please continue. So, I'm looking at the Next.js.
Yeah. So this is a Next.js application like I created to you today. So it's really simple one. So we have a sign in, sign up. I already put the code that we need to interact with the Amplify libraries to the auth. This is the sign in, the sign up, and the index. In the index, we are gonna create a glorify to-do list, because the normal to-do list like you can create in React or other languages is just it doesn't store the data in the cloud. So in that case, we are going to create an app to-do list where authentication system, but with also API system. So we're going to be able to store our tasks in the cloud and also owned by the people like is authorized in our app. So right now, there's no any Amplify thinking around. So I want to show you end-to-end, because I think we have still 30 minutes to go end-to-end, how to make this application like right now have no any cloud component into Amplify project. So like always, to work with Amplify or any AWS service, you need to have an account. So please, if you don't have it, please go to have it one. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is configure my Amplify local project. So the first thing, like I'm gonna run, well, first of all, be sure that you have the Amplify tools in your CLI. So if I'm gonna try to run the Amplify version to be sure like the Amplify is installed, then if everything goes well, then means like my Amplify tool is configured. So I can run Amplify configure. So when I run Amplify configure, the first thing like the tool is gonna show me, I hope it's quicker than that. I hope like it's nothing related with the hostage that's like we have yesterday. It's gonna open the console, because what it's gonna open the console, because what we're gonna do next is gonna ask me the CLI, what is the specific region that you wanna work? So I'm gonna tell West 2, and then it's asking me which is the IAM user that you want to create for this app, because with this IAM user, I'm gonna able to deploy and provision my backend. So I'm gonna do Amplify Caesar. So Amplify Caesar is gonna open directly the tool, the console with the IAM. Is gonna give me the pre-fill already the username It's gonna check the access key, programmatic access. It's not gonna give me access to the management console, because all the interactions that we can do with our services will be through the CLI. By default, it's gonna give me administration access. So this is something like as cloud developers we can custom, but for the sake of example, I'm gonna let it like this. Next, create the user. I will delete this user later. But if I press enter, because it's already created, it's gonna give me, please give me the access key. So I can use the access key, and the secret, please, the access key. So now it's gonna ask me, so for the profile name, because this is the profile name that is gonna install in my machine. So I'm gonna say Amplify Caesar Prof, for instance, to tell something. Everything is set up. So I have my IAM user to be able to provision all my service. So now what I'm gonna do is to make my app Amplify. This part is important because it's where the magic starts. So I'm gonna run Amplify init. So with Amplify init, what it's gonna do is because I'm running the Amplify init in my root of my project, it's gonna tell me first, please enter a name of my project. So the project that I'm gonna call it is, for instance, glorified to-do list, AWS, for instance, that's something, and then it's gonna get automatically information about my project. Because it's a JavaScript project, it's gonna tell me what is the name, what is the environment, because in Amplify, you can create different environments. So not only the environments, you can create, for instance, a test environment, staging, production, or whatever you want. The default editor is gonna be the Visual Studio, it's in JavaScript, it's React, it's my source code, this one. And for now, even I can tweak it. I'm gonna let it like this because it's fine. So, and then now, to ask the question for Andrew, kind of, which is gonna be my default provider, AWS CloudFormation, because the CloudFormation is gonna be the tool like I'm gonna use, or the service like I'm gonna use in my Amplify project to provision and deploy the services. And to back later, when you have a greenfield project, the CloudFormation, you don't need to tweak it, but when you have a project like you want to reintegrate with an existing CloudFormation templates, you can integrate these templates inside of your project, so can interact via CloudFormation. So what is gonna be the authentication method that I want to use is gonna be a profile. So I'm gonna look for my profile. It's gonna be this one, Amplify Caesar Prof.
Looks like we have another question, Cesar. Does it only support Next.js or other JavaScript frameworks?
It's supporting Vue. It's supporting React. Well, React and Next.js is really a couple, but React and Vue and what else? I think is the two major, right? But in Angular, you probably can use it as well, because actually the only thing like does Amplify is to provision your service and help you on the JavaScript level. So probably it's possible to use it as well, but mainly in React, Next.js, and Vue.
Cool.
But I think nowadays are the major ones. So I hope I answered the question. So if not, please let me know, and we can dig more on that. When after telling to Amplify CLI what is my profile, start the magic, because this, as you see here, adding a backend environment dev for Amplify app, blah blah. This is the internal code like AWS is using. So it's gonna create the roles, the deployment bucket that I need for my CloudFormation, and all the stuff like they need to provision. So all this provisioning is done by CloudFormation. And how is possible to do that? Because inside of our main root of the project, the Amplify tool is created this Amplify folder. This Amplify folder, at the end of the day, is just CloudFormation templates. So what it does, because this is saying what is my current cloud backend, is just a way to amplify, to track what is the changes that needs to be done inside of my applications, like needs to be provisioned in the backend. So for instance, if we go to this folder, it's saying which is my CloudFormation data. So what is the role name, what is the unroll name, the ARN, the region I need to deploy it, the bucket where it's going to be deployed, what is my stack name, what is my stack ID. So at the end, CloudFormation is going to provision and deploy one stack with all the resources that I have inside of my stack that I'm going to provision for the CLI. And what is my Amplify app ID. The same for the backend config. Like right now, we don't have anything for the tags. This is the CloudFormation stack name. So here, all the variables like I need on and all the outputs. And this is the config. Like I can run the configuration by all of my environments. So Amplify directly create the configuration for me. Okay, so. And right now, the only thing like I did is created my project Amplify. So because I created as Amplify, I can start to provision services to my app. So the first thing that I can add is an authorization service. So what I can between other things, as you see here, you can run some steps. For instance, Amplify status is going to show you what is the status of your deployments. Amplify add is the category like I'm going to use right now for adding an authorization and authentication service, push the backend resources like I'm going to push. And I'm going to show you right now what it means in the for console, pass, and publish. So I'm going to use Amplify add auth. So this is going to start the trigger, the provisioning of my authentication system. And Amplify, the Amplify tool is gonna ask me a lot of questions about that. So first of all, what is gonna be the default? What is gonna be the authentication system that you want to use? In that case, I'm gonna use the default one. I'm gonna do able to sign in by email to my users by email. And I have something else to do? No, I'm done for that. So what it's gonna do is spin up an Amazon Incognito. So as you see, when I put like that I want to use my default, when I indicate to the CLI that I want to use my default, automatically the CLI is telling me, okay, the service like uses Cognito, and it's gonna provide it by CloudFormation. So all good here. So everything is set up. The only thing that I need to do is push the changes. So push the changes meaning like I'm gonna provision and deploy a Cognito instance with all the user pools, like I'm gonna manage my users. So bear with me in a moment because this probably takes some time. So the Amplify is gonna tell me this is my current environment, dev, this is the auth, and all this kind of stuff. And then I want to continue. And then because I continue, it's gonna spin up all the and provision all the resources. So you see, again, the CloudFormation stack. If later on we check the CloudFormation stack in the Amplify folder, we will see all the CloudFormation changes like the Amplify CLI did in order to deploy it. So this is the user pool client, the user pool, the roles, and all the stuff like we need.
Hey, Cesar, we've got another question.
Yeah, I think sure. Go ahead.
From Murray, what do you look at when deciding if Amplify is the way to go on a project over provisioning the services yourself via something like Terraform, for example? Are there any kind of like big flags or indications that Amplify should be the thing that you use?
I mean, the main flag is you want to take control from the front end to provision these services. So the main advantage or benefit of using do like this, like I'm doing it, is like in the moment like I want to build an app for the front end perspective. So I create an app from scratch, or not scratch, but existing one. I can already create the services like I need in my app. In that case, for instance, the authentication and the storage and the API. And then the people like can work in the clouds can be focusing in more complex stuff related with my application. So the monitoring, the logging, the connectivity with our services. So and then they can use the tools as a cloud engineers, like they are more used to spin up or to make modifications to these configurations. But as a front-end developer or as an app developer, I have full control about what I'm doing. So this is one of the main benefits if I do via this. But what I go in deep about explaining about the CloudFormation is because you need to understand what is happening behind the scenes in some error pop-ups, or you need to make some modification, because anyway, as I said, because this is a CloudFormation stack, you're gonna be able to modify your CloudFormation and then resend again the provisioning or the provisioning of your services. I don't know if I answer the question.
I think at a high level, it sounds like you're saying it simplifies it for the front end team so the platform engineers can work on bigger problems, but it's got some configurability there.
Exactly. Yes.
Cool.
So the system finished, and then because finished, we have the authentication here. So because if we go now to the Amplify console, if we type Amplify console, is what I wanted to show you now. You will see how, I hope so, quickly it's opening the come on. It's telling which side do you want to open, the Amplify Studio or the console. So if I open the console, it's gonna redirect me to the Amplify console, and if I go to authentication, I'm gonna be able to see in my user pools to have control about the user pool that I just created that is with his name. So if I go to users, I will see later on the users that I have. So then with the libraries, itself, I can directly go to my code and start to add the authentication. So I want to authenticate my user by signing by the credentials, users, or email and password. And I want to do the same for the sign up. So I can do sign up and sign in flows really quickly with that, with the library. So I'm gonna show you later run an example of this. Let me finish, because I want to add right now an API. So I'm gonna do an API based on the authentication that we have. So we're gonna use the authentication incognito to also attach the owners of the data to this API. So for instance, the CLI is gonna tell me, okay, which flavor you want. I want to GraphQL. I want to start GraphQL. So it's gonna spin up an AWS AppSync instance. This is which authentication mode you want. So I want to, this is the name, this is the authentication mode that I want. Yeah, I want to continue because I don't want authorization by the API. I want to do by the cognito. So I want to use that a single object because I don't want to have in this app a really complex schema. And then it's gonna run this, and at the end, it's gonna tell me if I want to edit directly my schema. So I'm gonna say yes, and where it's gonna open in my Visual Studio Code. So I don't know what is spinning another instance of Visual Studio, but this is the main model. So right now I have already the code for you here, but I'm gonna delete that, and this is what I want to. It's just I want to the model. I want to add the tagging for the auth because I want to auth all the requests by the allow owner, and this is the schema, really straightforward. So when I push this, Amplify is gonna tell me if I want to generate the code related to this schema. So it's gonna provision a DynamoDB. It's gonna provision AWS AppSync instance, and it's gonna create locally the code like I need to run this. So it's gonna tell me, I'm gonna tell you, yes, I want to do that. And now it's gonna tell me I need to do anything. Do you want to generate code for your newly created schema? And I'm gonna say, okay, yes, I want to in JavaScript. And where you want to store your files, your queries, mutations, descriptions, I want to store here. Do you want to generate all possible operations? Yes, and how it's gonna be the maximum depth of the creation. So 2 is fine. So it's gonna, if we go to the source code, it's gonna generate in this folder all the code that we need. And it's gonna, at the same time, use a CloudFormation to spin up the services like it's needed. Any more questions in the meantime? Like this is creating this is provision the services.
I think we had a couple of people asking about, will this be available again to watch? So we've answered, yeah, we'll be, this is all recorded to YouTube and we'll be sharing it out on various channels again anyway in a couple of days. Cool. I think you will maybe put links to your GitHub repo so people kind of play around with it themselves without having to build a whole app.
Yeah, sure. So this is finishing up the yeah, sorry, yeah.
The moment of truth.
The moment of truth. Yeah, exactly. I hope it's working because yesterday afternoon I have a lot of problems with the outage of AWS, so I hope today is working fine.
Yeah. No, there was an outage yesterday. It's but AWS is always reliable, and it's why you have multi-region,
yes, exactly.
multi-AZ.
If we go in the meantime to the console and we go, for instance, to DynamoDB, we're probably gonna see really soon this Dynamo table, like it's gonna pop up. I hope really soon, and the AppSync as well. So let's see how it's going. This. Come on, we are waiting for you. So if you see here in the meantime, I can tell you, like, it's creating all the mutations for the creation, all the subscriptions, all the queries. So all of this is creating in the AppSync part, all the functionality like is needed to connect the AppSync with the DynamoDB. So every request is gonna go through the AppSync and then it's gonna generate some response to perform some actions onto DynamoDB. And hopefully at the end of the road, we have everything finished.
So is that making the database effectively observable if it's going through AppSync because it can communicate back? You mentioned subscriptions.
Yeah, the subscriptions are the real time communication. So via sockets is the duplex communication. So in this, you can open a socket communication, and then you can create, for instance, with DynamoDB streams. When something changes in your database, you can directly notify the front end about what is going to happen in your backend. So this gives you a real time communication with your data store, which is cool. pretty cool. But I didn't include it, for instance, in my slide of the example in the cost management, because in the moment like you put on the subscriptions, your costs are gonna be much higher because AWS is gonna you're gonna pay for the time that you have opened the connection, and also for the data transfer that you're gonna do in this duplex communication with the DynamoDB. And if you use a Dynamo streams, then it's gonna be even higher. So it's getting the things a little bit more complex in terms also in pricing. Cool. So this finished, as you see here. The Amplify created all the queries for us. So I think for the app developers it's pretty cool, because you can straight go to the code and start to use this. So they don't have to worry anymore about the schemas. And when they change the schema because this schema GraphQL is inside of your Amplify folder, this is gonna reiterate over your schema, so it's gonna regenerate the code. So we have the schema JSON, and you have the subscriptions like I already created, mutations, create to do, update to do, and queries and everything. So finally, in the last 5 minutes, we're gonna try if we can build the app.
This would be the longest demo ever for nothing. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm gonna see if everything ties together. Oh, it's gonna pop up some error that is normally happening in all the demos. I hope this demo is useful, because in many demos, like I saw about the Amplify, it doesn't show you end to end when it's gonna happen with your application. So yes, sorry if it was a really long demo, but I wanted to explain you more in depth what is happening behind the scenes. Also for the more cloud experts, like they can have a sense of what the Amplify is offering on the cloud side. So this is the application. We can hopefully go to the sign up and then say, okay, this is test7 gmail.com and the password I'm gonna use. I cannot show you, but when I press sign up, AWS Incognito is gonna send me an email with a code, because I didn't implemented the code flow. I'm gonna go to my Amplify console. I'm gonna go to my user groups, and I see here is the user sign up. So because I'm not gonna go for the flow of the code, I'm gonna confirm directly the user. So this user is able to get into the system. So I can sign in with it. And if everything goes well, you are signing. So this is ID of the user that I am. So the only thing that I can write, for instance, this is my first node, my first task. This was a really long demo. And then I press create, and probably something is wrong. So thank you, Amplify. You make my life easier. Not really easier, but essentially this should work. I don't know what is going on here, but the task is not working right now. But yeah, but essentially this is gonna store the data inside the DynamoDB. So if I have also the button of sign up and the sign up, and then I can sign out of my application. So I have a full stack application with authentication and storage. And this is the end. Thank you very much.
That's really awesome, Cesar. I think in half an hour to have the authentication, the actual hosting of the website and all that stuff is pretty impressive. And I think, to be honest, it's a brave person that codes live and deploys stuff live for, I think, 40 minutes now. So that's quite impressive. To be honest, there's so many moving parts that could have gone wrong. I think we've done actually really well. I'm sure everyone who's watching probably thinks so as well. So I have one question, which is just, obviously, if you'll have used AWS in your career, with regards to projects that you've worked on in the past, obviously Amplify will probably have matured over the years. If you went back in time, do you think that in real big scale projects, you would have used Amplify instead of the things you've done that maybe are heavier?
I would say yes, because I've been working on front-end teams and back-end teams as well. And the good thing of the problem sometimes is the communication. The front-end teams doesn't have the power to go to the back-end systems and start to spin up servers, to spin up APIs, to data stores, to manage the data models. So as a front-end developer, I see the benefit of using a tool as an Amplify. Saying Amplify, like for instance, another tool like Firebase, for instance. I don't want to spam here with other tools, but Firebase is another good example. Like you can achieve certain things similar like Amplify. I don't think reach the level of the Amplify, but you can do a lot of things as well. So it gives you as an app developer the true power to go to your favorite IDEs and work at scale without worry much about what is happening behind the scenes, and also driven your development to what's important to you, like is the authenticated user, make analytics, store data, store files, all this kind of stuff, like in every app, is repeated over and over and over. So yes, I would use it. But as a cloud engineer, I would say, like, if I understand the concern about like open from the front-end developer the wall of the cloud engineering without control, let's say, between brackets. But by the other hand, it's really cool as a cloud engineer because you don't have to worry about many of the concerns about applications, and you can really focus on more important and interesting stuff. How I can connect this with my data lakes, how I can connect with real data processing, with my IoTs, with other microservices, how I can monitor the services, how I can log them, how I can do other kind of stuff. Like I think is in general as a working as a cloud engineer also too, or cloud native developer, it's much more interesting. I think like spin up an API. Okay, an API is quite regular, right? So
it's just more about eliminating boilerplate stuff that's almost like an inevitability. I mean, I have to say, I think for uni hackathons or something like that, this would probably be the ultimate game changer. If you have to do something in 2 or 3 days just to test an idea, I can't imagine you can beat it at speed. And then obviously be able to get CloudFormation back out is pretty cool as well.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that was super interesting. And as I said, I don't think I've actually ever seen anyone do so many things back to back without having anything pre-prepared. So I think we did amazingly well to have, I don't know how many objects we had in the cloud all running at the same time. But anyway, thanks very much. I think you're joining us virtually from Amsterdam. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah, is that correct?
Yeah, but there is a Scottish team because obviously you work for a company that has I think 2 offices now in Scotland. So you're probably working on systems that we all use every day or will be soon.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Anyway, thanks for joining us, because I think you're an hour ahead, so it's getting quite late in your evening. So without further ado, thank you for your time and your demo, and wish you a Merry December and Christmas to come.
Thank you very much, Andrew, for your time.
Cheers, Cesar. And now there'll be a couple of last words from myself. So we will send the survey out in the next few days just to work out how we can make the events better. Also, if you yourself would like to speak at a future meetup, we're always open to suggestions on that kind of thing. And more importantly, we're always open to new formats. And if you have any other interesting news, particularly related to or tangentially related to the Scottish development scene, please let us know, and we'll see what we can do. Anyway, we shall give everyone their evening back now. Thank you very much for everyone for being with us this evening.